What's up, everybody, and welcome into the Liquid Trucking Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus. Thank you all so much for being here today. Wherever you're joining us from, we know you're out there on the pavement someplace. We appreciate the clicks, as always, man. I'm so blown away with the amount of people that listen to this podcast every single week. I just can't thank everybody enough, and I always want to make sure you guys know that our landing spot for everything Liquid Trucking Podcast can be found over at liquidtrucking.com. Click the banner at the top of the page, and you will be taken to our podcast landing page. It's that simple. All the episodes are there, lots of information about our guests and everything like that. And looking forward to getting a version 2 of said podcast landing page very shortly. My guy Tyler is working hard on it, and hopefully sooner or later we'll have some concepts that I get to look at. But even sooner, we're probably going to have ourselves a new functional website for you to play with. So look for it. You know I'll be talking about it. That's all I do is talk. This week's episode is kind of a little bit of a hodgepodge, I'll be honest with you. It'd been a long time since we've had a health professional on this podcast, and I've got one that I am connected with who's absolutely awesome. His name is Dr. Mark Manera. He's the founder of Offshift. He's been working with truckers on their health for quite a while now. Is originally a physical therapist, has a lot of really good ideas and really good advice for drivers that are looking to, change their health a little bit. And I had about, probably a 35, 40-minute conversation with Dr. Mark today, and it's great. We touch on a lot of stuff. He's always got some success stories that he wants to tell, and it's amazing because, listen, we all love a success story, right? Somebody's going through it, and they persevere, and all of a sudden they're not going through it anymore, and their life's better. Who doesn't love that? I mean, it's just a Disney movie that happened in real life, and sometimes you get to hear those stories and get excited about it. Well, the reason I like it when Dr. Mark shares his success stories on the show is because his success stories a lot of the times come from the least likely sources. You wouldn't think that this success story started out this way, but it does. And it's crazy some of the things that Dr. Mark can tell us that people have not only tried, but tried successfully to get their health under control as a truck driver, especially as an over-the-road truck driver. So we're going to talk to him about that because I think, listen, I'm not the picture of health. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that I am the one that you all should listen to for your mental or for your physical health or your mental health, really. If you listen to me for your mental health, it might just be that we're kindred spirits and you get it. But if you're listening to me for your physical health, I got to tell you, I haven't given you a lot of tips. That's because I'm not necessarily the guy. I'm not a gym rat. I played sports growing up. My least favorite part of sports was the working out. I always felt like, why are we doing this? This is moving weight around. I'm supposed to be throwing a ball or catching it right now. So I worked a lot on like the fundamentals of my sports, did not spend a lot of time in the gym. And I think that it's affected me as an adult. I think that maybe beating myself up a little bit more and making things hard for myself as a kid while doing these sports probably would have been better. Really, it's funny because the only time I really had to struggle in sports in high school was actually in wrestling my freshman year. I gotten a hold of some creatine in football season, and I'd tacked on, 15, 20 pounds of fat because I wasn't going to the gym. And I got to my first wrestling practice, and my coach says, I got you slotted in at 125 pounds, bro, and you're tipping the scales at 140 plus right now. You've got 10 days till our first meet, and you're not wrestling if you don't hit weight. That was a gigantic struggle for me, and an unhealthy one at that. Let's not lie and say that it was smart for a 14, 15-year-old kid to knock off 15 pounds in a week or so. But it sucked, and it was something that I tried to learn from, didn't really at the time. I think I learned more from it in my adult years, and thinking, man, if I would have stressed myself a little more, made myself go to the gym when I was younger a little bit more, taken it more seriously when somebody else made me go, I probably wouldn't have as much trouble with getting over that first workout hump like I do today. But that's one of the reasons having a guy like Dr. Mark in your pocket that you can call up and talk to is really beneficial, because I'm going to ask him that question. I'm going to ask him the question is, if I was a driver, I know what I would be going through right now. I would be looking myself in the rearview mirror and I would be saying, you need to change your health. You need to exercise more, and you need to eat better. That does not mean that any of that would make it out of the conversation I had with myself in the rearview mirror. I want to know what Dr. Mark's advice is for people that are looking to get started right now, but just haven't found a way to do it yet. And trust me, he's got some really, really good advice. So you're going to want to stay tuned and listen to this one in its entirety. It's my interview with Dr. Mark Manera, the founder of Offshift, right now.
Welcome to the gold standard of podcasts for the gold standard of drivers. This is the Liquid Trucking Podcast with your host, Marcus Bridges.
Welcome back into the Liquid Trucking Podcast. Very excited to be joined by a great guest and also somebody I feel like I could call a friend at this point because I've talked to him so much. Please welcome the founder of Offshift AI, Dr. Mark Manera, to the program. I'm only going to say this once. Dr. Mark, great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Marcus. Excited to be back and definitely friend.
Okay, cool. Now that we've established that, I don't think I'll ever have a problem not slipping the doctor in anymore. Now I can just be Mark and I won't fight with it internally, okay?
Perfect. I appreciate it.
Glad to have you back. Always grateful for the time that you spend with us here. A real expert in physical health and the trucking industry as well. And before we get too far into some of the stuff I've prepared here for you today, let's chat a little bit about Offshift.ai. What's going on? What's new? What kind of ventures are you guys diving into? I feel like it's just been a little bit since we've talked, so I want to get caught up.
Yeah, well, Offshift is moving. We're getting into more trucking companies. We're working with more drivers. And, for anyone who doesn't know what Offshift is, what we do is we help drivers live a healthier, happier life out on the road. And so we focus on helping drivers prevent and manage obesity-related chronic diseases. So driver who needs to lose weight, needs to manage their diabetes, who needs to manage their blood pressure, or prevent any of those things from becoming a problem either. We help you make the lifestyle changes necessary anywhere you drive to do that. And so we're helping drivers work out in the back of their truck. Our most popular programs, the inside the cab workouts, and we can also do it outside if it's a nice day in Nebraska and you want to get outside. And we also help drivers eat healthier, at the Love's Truck Stop or McDonald's attached to it. So anywhere you drive, we want to help you make these small changes and find the healthiest options out there to live a healthy life, to lose those 10 pounds, have more energy for your family, enjoy life on and off the clock, and really build it in a way that's possible for drivers to do it. And we're having a lot of success with it. There's kind of two really cool stories recently since the last time I was on the podcast So there are two really big, cool stories from drivers who are members at Offshift that are showing kind of the impact that we're having at the driver level, and just some things I'm honestly proud of from an Offshift perspective, because I just like seeing drivers be healthier, happier out on the road. And the first one is we've got a team of over-the-road drivers, a husband and wife who drive team all across America, and they've been members for about a year now. And they are training for a 50-mile march to raise money for veterans' mental health. And so They just, I think 2 weeks ago, qualified. They did like a 25-mile hike with a 20-pound backpack on each. And they are training and working with one of Offshift's coaches, one of our coaches, to get up to being able to do 50 miles in 24 hours. We're pretty pumped about that. And one of the cool things about Offshift is we're very community focused. And what we did is we actually are doing a challenge with all of our members, an internal challenge where if a driver hits a certain milestone in the challenge, we're going to actually donate to them for that charity to help grow.
Awesome.
So, we try to do some things just to build the community. And obviously there's a lot of drivers who are veterans in this industry. So just really, building everything around helping drivers with veterans' mental health is really impactful and gets people excited about it as well. And then the other one I'm really excited about is we just had a member who's lost 135 pounds.
Wow.
And 10 inches off of his waist in a little over a year with Offshift. I just sometimes take a step back and I'm like, that's like a whole human.
Yeah.
Like that is crazy. Like imagine how great he feels jumping up into the truck and climbing into the truck after taking a literal human off amount of weight off of his body. And that's like one of those things is like you're pumped about having to get a new wardrobe because you just lost all that weight and you're like, yes, I want to
Yep.
buy all new clothes. So that's kind of two stories of some updates on members and just some things we're really excited about.
That's awesome. You can tell you've done this podcast or talked with me a lot because you came with the success stories right there in your pocket. You knew I was going to ask for them because they're always so cool. I mean, like I think about not only getting up in the truck after losing 135 pounds, like that's a lot of weight to lift up in the truck. As a guy with one bad knee, I think about getting down out of the truck with 135 less pounds on your back. The amount of pressure that's coming off your knees there, I mean, you got to feel like a brand new human at that point. Like you just got a brand new lease on life.
Well, exactly, right. And my background in physical therapy, like I can nerd out on that as well. But I think from like a human perspective, the other aspect is like that driver is expecting his first grandchild here
Oh,
in the
cool.
next couple of months. So like just the ability or like the thought of like him setting himself up to enjoy and being around for his grandkid for years and years and years because he's doing that for his health. That's the stuff that gets me really excited. And I know that really resonates with a lot of drivers out there because outside of loving trucking, mostly drivers are doing this for their family, right? And I
Absolutely.
think something that I'm really passionate about is you make so much sacrifice for being out on the road, long hours at work, driving, and there's a lot of pride in keeping a roof over your family's head and like food on providing for your family. But what I really like want drivers to recognize is that the other aspect of that and being there for their family is not putting your physical and mental health on the back burner, but being able to prioritize it, because when you prioritize it, then when you show up for your family, you're there at your highest capacity.
Yeah.
And I think that's an aspect that a lot of drivers are starting to think about and starting to recognize that, maybe what I've done for the first 10, 15 years of my career isn't sustainable for the next 10 or 15 years. And I want to make a change.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about as a big football fan, think about something that's kind of cliched that I hear football coaches talk about a lot that really relates to what you just said in setting yourself up to be there for your family long term, right? They say the best ability is availability. And if you don't make some of these changes before your grandkids come along or before it's gone too far down that road, you might not get to enjoy that time that you're talking about with a third generation of the family or even a fourth. And I want you to speak to something real quick because I still want to talk about our team driving couple. Don't worry, I'm coming back to that. But something else for this particular driver that lost 135 pounds. Losing 35 pounds, losing 3.5 pounds is not an easy feat for a lot of people in the world. So to start down that road and then finish, well, not even finish it, but look back a year later and see that you've lost 135 pounds and 10 inches, that feeling has got to be incomparable. But here's what I want you to talk to me about a little bit, Mark, is what is one piece of advice that you could give to a driver that's thinking about starting down this road? Every time I decide I'm going to go to the gym, every New Year's resolution, every time I want to work on my golf game, it doesn't matter what it is. That first step is always the hardest one. Can you speak directly to a driver that might be thinking about turning his health around finally? Maybe he's got 150 pounds to lose, but he can't quite get past that first step. What's your advice for that driver?
Two things. Number one is if you keep your eye and like you all your focus on needing that scale to be 150 or 135 pounds lighter, you're gonna get defeated and you're not going to stay in the game long enough to get to that point. Because the truth of the matter is to lose 135 pounds, it starts with losing 1 pound, or it starts with one behavior. And I think a lot of people are so like you open up TikTok, you open up social media, and we're just like scrolling. And like we don't have a lot of people, and maybe drivers aren't as much, but I think there's a lot of drivers out there who probably find themselves in the same position as our attention spans aren't locked in and concentrated long enough
Yep.
And this is a marathon, man. This is not a sprint. This is not a, 1 day thing and you're going to get to the finish line. But this is something that, like, honestly, is the rest of your life, right? Like, the whole point of health in this game of health is to set it up where you can do it for the rest of your life. And it's consistent and realistic because that's how you actually get to enjoy the fruits of all the changes that you're making and the healthier, physical and mental health that you have. The other aspect is really just like starting small and recognizing that small changes can spark and lead to bigger changes. And that consistency is the most important variable around all of this.
Mhm.
And the fact that if a driver just day one for the next 2 weeks, instead of going into the truck stop and getting a large Coke, went in and got a large Diet Coke, and that's all you did, that would be a huge step in the right direction. You'd feel like you have momentum. You'd be building momentum and some wins under your belt. And then the next change will probably automatically happen. And you'll just automatically start doing something different because you're like, oh, okay, these small things, I can do this. And it actually doesn't change my current day-to-day life at all. And there's so many of these like low-hanging fruits that you can just grab and start making the change. And it doesn't feel like, how am I going to lose 135 pounds by doing this? I got to radically change this. And it's like, no. We're gonna do this. Okay, this is like normalized now. Now we're gonna do this. Oh, now that's normalized. Oh, we're gonna do this. Now you're stacking all these things on top of it, and then all of a sudden you look back and you're down 100 pounds, and you're like, holy crap, my life has changed completely, but I didn't realize or it didn't feel like I like pulled it out, the rug out from under me because I didn't, make all those changes at once.
Sure, sure. That's great advice. And I'm going to relate it to my life. It starts with the putter. All right. And it starts inside of 4 feet. Okay. And everything outside of 4 feet, we don't worry about until we dial it in from 4 feet. It's very good advice because the way you said it, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Nobody's losing 135 pounds tomorrow. Right. And those incremental steps that you talked about, I always go back to this story. And I tell this little anecdote that you delivered to us, I think the very first time we ever talked, when we talked about the driver who used to be a case of soda a day, and you got him to switch to one diet or 1 sugar soda in that 24, and sooner or later he's totally turned it around. That's the best living example I feel like you can give is, and you want to talk about breaking things down very incrementally. Just think about the grams of sugar that you will not put into your body if you change one diet soda for a regular one. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it because it's, especially those large 44-ounce fountain pops, man, that's 40-some ounces or 50-some ounce grams of sugar or more, like hundreds of grams of sugar. It's crazy. Those little incremental changes really help.
Yeah, and everyone's a little bit different, right? And some people can take bigger bites out of it and change more at one time, and some people can't. But what I think, most people, and I think when you add the lifestyle of driving into it, it makes it even more, this kind of like resonates even more is, these huge fad diets where tomorrow I'm starting this huge diet change. I'm cutting everything out. I'm not even going to look at a carbohydrate and like sugar and like I'm like completely changing everything. I don't know. Just doesn't work for me. And there's a lot of people a lot of drivers that it doesn't work with that we work with. And a lot of the times, especially as someone gets into their late 30s, into their 40s and 50s, mentally they have a lot of these like quote unquote attempts of making changes or eating healthier that stack up and they're in their head failures and they feel like there's no point or like I've tried this before, it's not going to work. And it's like, well, yeah, have you tried a different approach or have you taken a different approach or a slower approach or, like, have you had some accountability around you with a coach? Like there's so many different angles of it. And I just really like would encourage anyone listening to this to not give up, not feel like what they've done in the past is their only attempt, and to realize that everyone's a little bit different. And just because you opened up Facebook and saw this person, this diet worked great for them does not mean this diet's going to work great for you or that you have to use that diet to be healthier. So, yeah.
And, remember too, when you open up those social media apps, everybody listening, you're not just competing with that person and that fad diet. It's the camera filter. It's the expensive equipment. It's a stylist. It's probably a coach when they go to the gym, helping them look like that. Social media is built to be this thing where everybody can do it and it doesn't take any effort. The reality is so much different than that, and it takes a lot of effort. And it's the advice that you've given today is fantastic for people starting out, and also I think people that maybe have hit a little bit of a plateau. I know that during different weight loss ventures in my life, I got rid of the scale. The scale lives in my wife's. We converted a bedroom to a walk-in closet for her, and that's where that scale lives. And I don't go in that room because, frankly, I don't want to know. My wrestling days are long behind me. Nobody cares if I make weight other than me, and I'm just beating myself up by stepping on that scale every single day. So, and again, that's something that worked for me, might not work for everybody. I know a lot of people like to gamify things, and if you don't have that data point at the end of the day, you're not going to feel good that you didn't step on that scale and read it. So figuring it out for yourself is, I think, the biggest obstacle, and don't give up. I mean, that what you said there, it's like, just because the Atkins diet didn't work for you doesn't mean that nothing's going to work for you. It just means that you probably spent a little bit too much on those shitty candy bars that they like to sell, right?
Exactly, right. And everyone has bad days, right? It's like not an up and down. It's kind of like that. The analogy of like you see the slope going up and to the right, but when you zoom in, it's like a whole bunch of ups, downs, but
Yeah.
it's a long-term trend. And especially on social media, you're seeing a highlight reel of everyone, right? No one's sharing that. Now, most people are not sharing their low points. And if I followed everything that I saw on social media, I'd be a billionaire owner operator because it's so easy to
Right?
start
Wouldn't
one.
we all, man?
Yeah,
Wouldn't we all?
exactly.
I might be a bodybuilder. Who knows? I could be
There
one
you
of these
go.
guys
Yeah.
kicking trick field goals. I mean, it's easy. We can all do it, right? The lure of social media is something I feel like we all compete with every day, and I like to bring it up and talk about sometimes why it's not all that it's cracked up to be. And this is kind of getting into a second half of the conversation here that I wanted to talk about. And before we get too far away from them, I do want to mention your team driving couple that you're working with that's training for the 50-mile march. They're trying to raise money for mental health for veterans. I think that's an amazing cause, and it really does marry up well with something I wanted to bring up to you today. The trucking industry, we've seen it. You and I have been acquainted now going back, I think, a couple of years, maybe not quite that long, but in that amount of time, we've watched the trucking industry sort of tank and stay at the bottom and bounce along the bottom, and things have been really tough for drivers, fleet managers, owner-operators, dispatchers, you name it, up and down the board. The trucking company's feeling it. Now, I know that you don't specialize in mental health, but a very important aspect of mental health, I think, is physical health. And I wanted to touch on that a little bit with you today, Mark, kind of the physical side of mental health. As drivers are out there dealing with the uncertainty, I saw a picture the other day of the Port of Seattle. There was no boats in it. That's terrifying for people that work in the transportation industry. And as we get to the summer here, the weather's going to start getting a little bit nicer. The industry might not turn around. How can drivers utilize, I guess, kind of stealing their mental health or stealing their physical health to help them in their battle against whatever mental health struggles they might go through in these tough times?
Well, physical health and mental health go hand in hand, right? It's all connected. If you try to isolate it, like you're just not looking at the full picture, right? And so a lot of the times when one of those goes downhill, the other one's like tiptoeing right behind it. And so, the ability to impact not only your mental health but also physical health is looking at them hand in hand. And my wife and I go for a nice walk every evening, and at this point, it's more mental health for me, getting outside, breathing the fresh air, and like having some time just to like detach from my day and from the computer, or for a driver detaching from behind the wheel and getting some fresh air, than it is for my physical health. But it touches both of those, right? And
Right.
I think mental health is an area that I have been talking a little bit more and more about, and I don't try to be I'm not an expert by any means, but I think that there's a lot of stigmas in the trucking industry when it comes to mental health. And I think, being able to, have that conversation and hopefully break some of those barriers, because, so I know there's drivers out there that are scared to even go get treatment and talk to a therapist because, number one, they're scared it's going to end up coming up on their during their DOT physical and end up on their med card. And then, for some reason, there's this stigma out there that if you have mental health issues on your med card, that you're not going to, you're going to lose your medical card and lose your CDL. And that's not true, right? I think that stems back from there was a depression medication that the FMCSA put on the list because the major side effect was drowsiness.
Yep.
And how gossip happens is one thing turns into the other, and all of a sudden if you bring up anxiety or depression, then you're going to lose your CDL, and that's just not true, right? And so I think breaking that barrier is really important, and making it a conversation at the company level, and also just other drivers, of normalizing talking about your mental health and being able to have those conversations, and also being able to have people who resonate and are willing to listen and give be a friend. And I think a lot of drivers out there probably have some other friends in the trucking industry, but a lot of the people they speak to might be their spouse at home or friends from home that don't really understand the lifestyle. And so being able to have people who get what you go through on a day-to-day basis, who love you from a friend perspective or whatever it is, and can resonate with you, and being willing to talk to them about that is really important. And then, the final aspect is a lot of truck drivers don't even know that companies have EAP programs, employee assistant programs, and part of your health insurance is a lot of times free mental health, therapy or treatment of being able to speak to someone. And what I would really encourage drivers is don't wait till it's too late. Take advantage of these free benefits, and Big Brother's not watching you. There's HIPAA. There's a lot of barriers. If you speak to someone, even if it's through an employee benefit, it's not going to come back to your company. That's not how it works. And if it does, then your company's doing illegal things, and you've got a lot. You've got other things on your plate that are bigger than that. And so, what I'd really encourage drivers is like go out, speak to someone, care about your physical and mental health, talk to drivers, and maybe you are that person for another driver who you will listen and give advice, and be a friend to them. And I think if more people just come in with that mentality, and be friendly, and be open about having the conversation around mental health, I think the industry as a whole would be lifted.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That is 100% a rising tide that lifts all ships, Mark. And part of the stigma around it, we kind of do, and not in a directed fashion, but I hope that this podcast gives us a chance to sort of reach beyond those stigmas as well, because we offer the chance for a lot of drivers to come in here and speak their mind about the things that they want to talk about. And one thing I've noticed in my travels, I've worked with quite a few trucking companies at this point. One of them had something I thought was really cool that they piloted, which was called driver advocacy. And it was just a person sitting by the phone for this time during the day. And if you wanted to call and talk to somebody, you'd call and talk to them. They weren't a mental health professional. They were somebody that was willing to sit there and listen. And it worked wonders. I know a lot of drivers that became like a weekly thing for them to give her a call, just have a chat. And awesome. It does wonders for the cobwebs that swim around in the 6 inches between our ears to just talk to another human. Another shout out I want to give, I know they're listening right now. That's the teenage hotline at Liquid Trucking. It's probably 6, 7, 8 guys at times when I've been working with Liquid Trucking. It's been even more. And they're on the phone almost all day. I actually called one of them the other day, returned a call to one of them. And when I called in, they just put me right in the party line, and I was there chatting with them. And I'll tell you guys, does it help them with the job? Absolutely. They can ask for advice. They can do this. They can do that. They can find out things about routes and weather and all that. But I guarantee you, it's not 8 hours of them just talking about that. It's 8 hours of them just talking. And
all right, so I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a story then, similar to that. But sorry, I cut you off there. Finish your thing.
No, sorry. I just want to continue to beat this drum about talking to somebody. I mean, you can look at me as an example. My entire day, all day, is talking to people. And I tend to be a generally happy guy. I don't have a lot of cobwebs floating around. Sometimes when my wife comes home, she goes, "How was your day?" "Fine." You don't want to talk about it? No, I talked about it for 8 hours. That was my whole day. I don't need to talk about it anymore. But a lot of people they swallow that down and they don't get that communication, Mark. But on to your story, because you've always got the good ones, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And I think the other aspect is off of what your point is. When when the ideas are bouncing around the cobwebs, and then it is added into a whole lot of windshield time. Those ideas and especially when anger is involved or frustrations involved, it can just amplify, and then your brain just goes into these rabbit holes, and then all of a sudden, like, you kind of take a step back and you're like, where the hell did that come from? Like,
Right.
this isn't even like reasonable at this point, right? And I think it's like so easy, and I can find myself doing that as well, right? And so my story is part of me learning the trucking industry. And this goes back to when I was working as a physical therapist in a PT clinic, and the first time drivers came in to the clinic, and I really saw what 20, 30 years behind the wheel can do to someone's health. It threw me down this rabbit hole of just like researching the trucking industry, like getting to know the lifestyle. Basically, like, I did ride-alongs, hanging out at truck stops, like talking to drivers. And like, one of the first things I did, because this driver in the clinic, when I was rehabbing his knee, was like, you got to go on Facebook groups. Trucking Facebook groups are where it's at. And so I, as like someone who's never been in the trucking industry, go into trucking Facebook groups and just start reading through trucking different threads. I'm like, this is the Wild West. I'm like, what are these? This is crazy. But
welcome to my life.
Through that, I actually became friends with some people. And one of the people that I sparked, they had a Discord channel. And for people who don't know what Discord is, it's basically like a fancy Facebook group where there's a feature where you can go into basically a live
video
conversation, voice, and it's video, or you can just do voice. And they had a group of like 30 drivers that would call in throughout the day and just talk. And I believe I am the only physical therapist in the world who, between patients, was on the phone with a whole bunch of truck drivers driving around the country, and just just hearing these crazy stories, and them just like wanting to tell me all about them. And I was just like eating it up. And so that's my story. And I think more drivers should do that, because I think, it's kind of like being the only guy, the lonely person at the party, where you actually look up and there's a whole bunch of lonely people that are scared to start the conversation. And I bet there's a lot of drivers out there that would love something like that and love, people to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can be alone together. There's a lot of times where those party chats, there's 3 guys talking about something. There's 5 other dudes in there. They haven't said anything for an hour. That, maybe they just, it's a really cool feature that you can dip in and dip out of those things and just kind of show up and talk to your friends for a little bit, and then, I got to go deliver, and then, you get out. It's, if you know of some drivers that have one of those at your fleet and you're listening to this today thinking that'd be kind of cool, and I know Mark's going to echo this because he's been in one too, I highly recommend it. If nothing else, you will come out of that conversation with some of the best insults you've ever heard, and you can save those for your real life friends and hit them right between the chops with them during your next beer. But it's so much more helpful than what you ever think it could be. And as somebody that spent a fraction of amount of the time that these drivers do on the road, driving by myself all over the state of Oregon, I think that quite a few of my friends would tell you that was the most annoying part of my professional career, because I'm a talker and I needed somebody to talk to. So people got called when I was on those road trips all the time. Because like you said, with the anger and frustration and the little thoughts, you look at the banana you just bought at the mini mart and you're a little bit mad that it's bruised, and 6 miles down the road, you've solved international relations. You need to talk to somebody, even if it's just about your last round of golf, man.
I was gonna say, I came out of some of those conversations thinking, I think we solved politics in the United States every other day. So it was good. So yeah.
If we could only get just, 200-300 truckers to run this country, and we might get some stuff figured out, Mark. It's true.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
I've got a couple more things here for you, and then I'll let you go. I know you're a busy guy, and again, we really appreciate the time that you spent here with me today. I've brought this up to you before because it's something that I utilize, and it's weird because we've talked about it, I don't know, probably 6 months, a year ago, the first time. And that was just that I'm a walker. If I have the choice of going to the gym and moving around heavy metal plates, or just going for a really brisk hour-long walk, I'll take the walk every day and twice on Sunday. And I've noticed on the social media that this is starting to become, and I hate to say it, a little bit of a fad. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit because you and I have talked before about the effectiveness of just getting out and just walking, just getting some fresh air. You talked about it earlier. It's more of a mental thing for you. I get a lot of mental love out of it too. I walk really fast. I do 4 miles per hour is my pace right now. So it's a pretty quick pace, but I've always been a fast walker. It comes easy to me. That's why I decided to do it. Talk to me as a physical therapist and also somebody that's dealing with truckers getting healthier. How much benefit can they see from like a daily 4 mile, 3 mile, 2 mile walk? As we talked about getting started and how that's really tough on some people. Is that a good way? Is that something that you would recommend, just getting out and walking?
Yeah, I mean, like, so there's been research in the last couple of years by the CDC that says as little as 5 minutes of physical activity at a time can have health outcomes. So it's not even 2 miles. It's not even like 3 or 4 miles or even a mile. Like going out and doing a lap at the truck stop for 5 minutes, and you just that's like your first step is a huge step in the right direction. And I think with this is, I think you get even more crazy on the nutrition side of things, but I think what happens with health is that people like to overcomplicate it. And I think also people like to go and educate and learn, which I think is awesome. We should do more of that. Like I'm all about learning and educating. But I think when you're doing that, you need to look at like at what level and who are they talking to, right? And I think part of this is like, are you listening to a podcast that they are talking about people who are like still learning their ABCs, or are they talking to like people who are getting a doctorate degree in English and writing a novel, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're trying from a health perspective to be Arnold Schwarzenegger and be the world's strongest man, win a bodybuilding competition, like be this elite athlete, okay, there's a lot of variables and there's a lot of science. Like there's a lot of like really deep in-depth things where it's like these small changes and these small nuances can make a huge difference to get to that like from 99 percentile to 99.2 percentile, right, of health, right? But if you are someone that is like, look, I'm just getting started, I'm trying to lose a couple of pounds, I don't have a lot of time, I'm just like I want more energy and I want to feel better throughout the day, man, any physical activity is great. If that even is like, I've gotten some drivers, and these are not drivers who are OTR, but these are drivers who are home every night. They love gardening, and that's their physical activities, getting out and gardening, and they're squatting down, they're gardening. You start building up a sweat, doing all that, picking weeds, and all that. I don't care what it is. I pick something you enjoy doing, and walking is a really great, easy starting point. And a lot of people do enjoy it because of not only the physical health and outside aspect, but the mental health aspect of it feels good as well. And so I think that's amazing. And I think even 5 minutes at a time is a great starting point. And then going for 5 minutes to 10 minutes, 10 minutes to 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. All of a sudden you're doing, a 30-minute walk every single day. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to try an hour, right? Or I'm going to try 4 miles or whatever it is, right? And so I just like really think more drivers should start at the basics and start really small instead of kind of going down those rabbit holes that happen when you have a lot of windshield time and you listen to this crazy health podcast and you're all of a sudden like, I have to, all these different, crazy health things that are happening. And I don't even know what half these words are. And I don't even know, as someone in the healthcare world, what half these words mean. And I should just focus on probably eating, less Twinkies and more fruits and vegetables, right? Yeah. Or less scrolling on TikTok and sitting in my cab and more walking outside.
Yeah. Great advice, and easy to get started on that one, man. And you know what? You want my best advice for taking a 5-10 minute walk every time you stop the truck? Bring the dog. Yeah, because you don't want it peeing or pooping in the truck. So just bring the dog and you gotta go. That's something that sort of actually started me on my walking journey, was walking my corgis. They got really
awesome.
short legs. They can't go that far. So I kept it nice and easy at the outset, Mark. But okay, just a couple more minutes here. I've never asked you this one before, but it seems like such a good question to ask. Any shitty trends that have hit your radar recently in kind of the health world, whether it be a nutritional trend or another one of these fad diets or a fad workout or anything like that you've seen recently that you've heard some people talking about and you've seen it gaining traction and it's giving you a little bit of pause? And I surprised you with this question, so don't feel bad if you don't have one off the top of your head.
Look, I'm kind of more of one of those guys that's like, I'm just going to stay positive, and everyone's diets, some people love, some people like keto works great for them, or, this diet works great for them, or this XYZ thing works great for them. And, I'm kind of like, hey, if you can do this sustainably and you're losing weight, you're being healthier. And, when you go to the doctor and you get blood work done, it's, your cholesterol's not all over the place and like you're healthy. I'm all about it.
Okay.
And so, I think it's kind of, I guess recently I had a conversation where a driver lost like 50 pounds or 40 pounds. I was like, what did you do? And he was like, oh, I just ate cucumbers all day. That was the only thing I ate. I'm like, all right, so maybe that one, maybe that one's just a little aggressive, right? Maybe, but I think most drivers out there like have the common sense to realize that that's probably not the healthiest diet, even though he's eating a whole bunch of veggies, right?
Yeah,
So
great,
yeah.
great. Yeah, I'm sure it works out great for him, and I love it. I will tell you right now, the cucumber diet is one that's really hard to start, okay? A, you got to have room for all those cucumbers. B, you really got to like cucumbers. So, but hats off to that guy, and also hats off to you for staying the course, because with everything we've talked about today, that was a little bit of a sideways question. You've been saying the whole time, do what works for you. I asked you to point out something that might be a bad trend, and you're like, no, it might work for somebody. So stay positive about it and do what works for you. That's a true pro right there, Mark. I can't thank you enough for that. I wasn't trying to mislead you there,
No,
but I caught the
didn't feel that way
relation.
at all.
Yeah.
I just kind of come into this and I just kind of only say what I know, and that ends up doing well for me, and I don't make things up. So there you go.
That's awesome, Mark. I really appreciate it. Dr. Mark Manera, founder of Offshift AI. Tell me where my drivers can go, because there's a bunch of them listening to this that I know are going to want to learn about Offshift. Where's the best place for them to go and check out what the program offers?
Yeah, well, and our name's just Offshift.
Offshift, sorry.
Offshift.ai is our website.
There you
If
go.
you can somehow pay for offshift.com, it'll be offshift.com. But Marcus, someone owns that, and it's way too expensive, so we got to go with offshift.ai. So it's
I
our
get
name.
it.
So
I get it.
yeah, that's the URL, and so if anyone wants some help, if you're a company out there and you want to offer these types of benefits for your drivers, or if you're a company driver and you're like, hey, my company should offer this, send them to Offshift. We'd love to have a conversation. And, if you want to have some encouragement, learn more about how you can be healthier out on the road, go follow us on social media, any social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn at Offshift. Just search Offshift. Or if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, I'm Dr. Mark Manera, and I post a decent amount on there.
Awesome. Always worth a follow, both Offshift and yourself. Dr. Mark, can't thank you enough for the time here. We will get you on again in the future, my friend. Take care of yourself, and thanks for joining us here on the Liquid Trucking Podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic stuff from Dr. Mark Manera from Offshift there. It's always a home run when I have Dr. Mark on the show. I wouldn't even call it a home run. I'd call it a walk-off grand slam. Down 3, bottom of the 9th, 2 outs, 2 strikes. Oh, bam! It's back! It's back! It's gone! The Liquid Trucking Podcast wins the day. We like to do that on this show pretty much on a daily basis. Well, weekly, since we don't put them out daily. But again, all jokes aside, thanks to Dr. Mark for coming on the show. He's got some great advice for any driver that's thinking about mental health, physical health, how the two of them marry up, getting started, little changes, incremental changes. It's all there. And the cool part is every time I have him on the show, he speaks the same truths, right? He's always talking about these same things. And that's why I don't have him on a lot, is because what he's talking about works. And so there's not a lot of changes that are happening. He's going to have more success stories every time he comes on this show because there's always drivers seeking him out and getting his help. But, as far as the advice, it's not going to change. It's going to keep staying the same. Little changes, little things, stack them up, get used to them. Pretty soon, you'll be in the clear. Big thanks to Dr. Mark Manera once again. Head over to offshift.ai if you're interested in what they've got to offer there. It's a fantastic company doing a lot of really good work for drivers and their physical health. Okay, we got a little bit of time left here, and this episode, I told you in the beginning, it's going to be a little bit of a hodgepodge. It's not so much of a hodgepodge as I feel like a hodgepodge is like a lot of little things all put into one. This is more like just a couple little things put into one. I had my interview with Dr. Mark, and now I've got a feel-good story for you. Because I didn't have a huge amount of time here to burn, I wanted to find something for this segment that's just going to sit nice in everybody's lap. Really warm them up, maybe on a cold day. And I totally found it. You guys know how much we love dogs on this podcast. We love cats too. We love all your little crawly animals that are running around, all your little furry friends that run around in the cab. I even saw a video of a gentleman loading what was probably a 150-pound pot-bellied pig into his cab the other day. We love it. We're here for it. We're all about animals. And just so you know a little bit about us here at the Liquid Trucking Podcast, we do have a driver out there that has a foundation for helping wiener dogs, which is just a phenomenal thing that they're doing out there. And also, as I know that he just heard the word wiener dogs as he's editing this, and he's wondering, what are you going to do to me this time, bro? My editor, my audio ninja, as I like to call him, Mike, one of the best dudes in the world, nicest guy you'll ever meet, has a senior wiener dog that sits right behind him every single day. We have a lot of video chat meetings. I see the little guy. He's not getting around so well anymore, but he is the unofficial Liquid Trucking Podcast mascot for sure. And I want you to know, Mike, I'm not going to jerk the tears on you for this one. Last time when we talked about the foundation and all the things that get done for people and help with wiener dogs and some of the health problems that they have, I know it really pulled at Mike's heartstrings. And I'm not going to do that to you today, buddy. I'm going to give you one, and you've probably already heard it. If you're at all a connoisseur of wiener dog news, you've heard this story coming out of Australia, but it is crazy. I'm about to tell you the saga of a little, just absolutely adorable miniature dachshund named Valerie, which I got to tell you guys right now, I got a huge soft spot for animals with human names. My corgis are named Detective Elliot Stabler and Lieutenant Dan. I don't know why it's always been that way for me, but it is. And I don't think I've ever run across a dog named Valerie, but I'm looking at this picture of this wiener dog, and if that smile with those eyes and those ears all perked up isn't a Valerie, I don't think I've ever seen a Valerie in my life. Let's tell you about Valerie. Valerie was on a vacation with her owners. Her owners' names are, let me go ahead and do this just for making sure that the story is accurate, Josh Fishlock and Georgia Gardner. They went on a vacation to Kangaroo Island. That is in Australia. If you're not familiar with the finer points of Australia, one thing about Australia is that it wants you dead. The climate, the animals, all of the bugs, maybe some of the people. I don't know that part for sure, but what I do know is that Australia in and of itself is just a treacherously dangerous place to be, especially if you are a wiener dog. A defenseless wiener dog named Valerie with a pink collar, who she got let out on a camping trip on Kangaroo Island because it was time to go potty, and mom and dad were getting ready to go fishing. They turned around, Valerie was gone. And I don't mean just gone, I mean like nowhere to be found gone. And in case you've never chased around an 11-pound wiener dog before, they're a little bit more nimble than you and you will blow out a knee or turn an ankle if you were just trying to chase her down and grab her. They didn't even get a chance to do that. Valerie was, poof, in the wind. And they thought, we're going to look for her. We're going to look for her for a long time. And they did. They brought in a bunch of rescuers. They brought in more people than what you could even imagine. See, Valerie was actually chased down. Well, she was chased. She was not chased down by the Kangala Wildlife Rescue. This nonprofit group said its volunteers spent more than 1,000 hours and traveled over 3,000 miles looking for Valerie. Why, you might ask? Well, when the owners couldn't find Valerie and they got some help from the people at the campground and they got some help from anybody that would listen to them, hey, my dog's lost here on Kangaroo Island, they assume the worst, like what a lot of people do when they lose their dogs and they search for days and they can't find any trace of them. They assume that something tragic has befallen that dog. In Australia, you don't just assume, you know. It got hauled away by a spider that's the size of a hubcap from a 1985 Volkswagen van. It got jumped on by a kangaroo by accident. It was just running through the field. A kangaroo that looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger on steroids came through, and it pounced in the wrong spot, and that's curtains for Valerie. That's what you assume. That's what I would assume. That's Kangaroo Island. That's what Kangaroo Island assumes. But all of a sudden, after, months, really, almost a year went by, stories started surfacing about Valerie showing up on certain wildlife cameras. They set a lot of those up in Australia because they're still finding animals that they didn't know exist down there. Granted, those animals, poisonous, toxic, killers, just like everything else down there in Australia. But as the nonprofit kept searching for this dog, she kept showing up on security footage, and one thing they knew about her is if she saw a human or she saw a vehicle, she was in the wind, dust in the wind. You know what I'm talking about? Kansas style, gonzo. So they tried, they're trying with live traps, they're trying to lure her with food. They've got toys from her house. They even had her mom wear a t-shirt for 12 hours at a time and then cut it into scraps, and they're trying to lure this dog in. 529 days after Valerie disappeared from her owners at the campground, they were able to lure her into a live trap, get her caged up, and get her back reunited with her family. Are you kidding me? Where's my applause button? Where's my party horns? I need all of the sound effects right now. This story, the first time I read it, honestly did almost make me well up a little bit with tears of happiness. You know, like the end of The Little Mermaid tears, not, I don't know, what's another one that's going to, There Will Be Blood? Not like that ending. Like a good ending. Like the end of Little Mermaid. The end of Shrek. The animated ones. Valerie's back, you guys. Valerie's back with Josh and Georgia Gardner. That deserves another round of applause. I mean, huge thanks go out to the Kangala Wildlife Rescue. Huge thanks go out to all of the citizens of Kangaroo Island that just dumped in some time and went looking for Valerie. She's going to live a long, happy life with her roommates that took her camping. I doubt they ever do that again. I got to be honest with you. If you took me camping and you're like, hey, Marcus, I'm going to go get the fishing tackle box, and you came back to the tent and I was gone for 529 days, take the hint. I don't want to go camping. That's all there is to it. It's not about my survival in the wilderness or anything else. I don't want to be camping if I run away from you when you're getting the fishing tackle. That's the lesson to learn here today. A lesson that young Valerie taught us that we all can take home and learn from. If you don't want to do something, run the fuck away. Maybe that doesn't apply to everything in life, all right? But a fun little story about an adventurous and brave and resilient little wiener dog named Valerie. I hope that warmed your heart like it did mine. A story that looked like it was going to end in tragedy ends the best possible way that it could. And we're going to end episode 76 the best possible way we can, right after that story here today. Thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate the clicks as always. Don't forget to head on over to liquidtrucking.com, click the podcast banner at the top of the page to find our podcast landing page where you can find all the information about all the episodes and listen to them right there from your web browser. Also would like to say, if you have a suggestion that you would like to hear on the show, I've gotten a couple of them rolling in here over the last couple weeks, and they've been good. They're going on the list. I've got Drive for Gold points to hand out, so all you got to do is send me a suggestion. podcast@liquidtrucking.com. If we use that suggestion, I'll be hooking you up with some points. And, you can talk to your guy, Mike Stanfield. You can talk to your boy, Matt Cleach. Both of those guys, I think I was a little bit late getting them their points. They hit me right where it matters, right in the pocket. And guess what? I got them their points. So I promise I'm good for it. Shoot your suggestions my way. Podcast@liquidtrucking.com. Be safe out there, drivers. Keep the shiny side up. And until 7 days from exactly right now, this has been the Liquid Trucking Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in and being the gold standard of drivers on the road. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and tune in next week for another episode of the Liquid Trucking Podcast.
Interested in finding out more about what it takes to bring a podcast like the Liquid Trucking Podcast to your fleet? Bulldog provides tailor-made top-to-bottom podcast production services. We'll meet your terminal staff, connect with your drivers, and bring you the content you want your drivers to hear. Type bulldog.works into your browser to connect with us and learn more about what we can do for your fleet. That's bulldog.works for podcasts, tenacious recruiting, and more.